Nebraska's new secondary coach and new defensive coordinator, Addison Williams and John Butler, are looking to add a lot of length, a lot of size, and legit track speed to their secondary in the 2026 recruiting class. Today, we're going to break down all of their top prospects that they are going after. And you'll notice too, one thing I'm starting to do is I'm going to add chapters to my videos. So if there is a specific player you're wanting to hear about, you can find their name in the chapter, click on that chapter and go to that specific player. And then I want to thank our members as well. Claude Derry, RoboFlock, Todd Richards, Pitt Snipe, and MD Kozman. Thank you so much for being members of the channel. We greatly appreciate it. Now, let's dive in to the recruiting. Now, first up on our board, current consensus 4-star defensive back commit, CJ Bronough, not 100% sure on the pronunciation. I said that time and time again. Nebraska has been on CJ for a very long time, going back to last season, actually. Really good length, 6'1", 170 pounds, elite ball skills, really good in man-to-man coverage. He had 3 pick sixes as a junior. And we talked about track times, right? Well, he's back-to-back state champion in the 100-meter dash in Florida. He also, I believe, won the 200-meter, if I'm not mistaken. But last year, as a sophomore, he won the state title at a 10.38 in the 100, 21.14 in the 200. And then he opened track season this year with a 10.33 in the 100 and a 20.87 in the 200. And like I said, back-to-back state champ. He's visiting Nebraska this weekend, and it is a big visit weekend for him, for Nebraska. We've said on this channel time and time again, can Nebraska hold on to CJ? At the end of the day, when everything's said and done, do they have a chance? Absolutely. Is it realistic? Absolutely. Do I think it happens? It's a toss-up. I would say very likely he does not stick with his commitment to Nebraska. He just visited Florida this past weekend. He's got visits set up to Florida State. He's got visits set up to Miami as well. Where is he from? You can see there. He's from Florida. All the local teams who are all kind of surging with NIL, surging with recruiting, positive momentum. At least at Florida State, they might be the exception. They're coming off an abysmal season, but they have new hope with Tony White as their defensive coordinator. So they're maybe trending upwards, but they're recruiting fairly well. But I think Florida right now is Nebraska's biggest competition to take CJ away from Nebraska. Take's maybe not the right word, but to flip CJ away from Nebraska. However, this weekend, Nebraska has a really good chance to lock him down. Now, he'll still take his other visits, but I think this is a Nebraska-Florida battle, and he's already visited Florida. Nebraska has a chance to lock him in, show him why he committed to Nebraska in the first place. Nebraska was the school who saw his talent before everyone else. Nebraska was the school who offered before everyone else. They've been on him since last season. He visited for the Wisconsin game. But like I said, I still think a flip is eventually going to happen, but everything can change this weekend for Nebraska and for CJ. The next recruit we're going to talk about, it's going to be a quick conversation. Camren Hamiel or Hamel, something like that. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, Camren. He was supposed to visit Nebraska this weekend, a consensus 4-star recruit, as you can see there. However, he committed to Texas A&M yesterday. I think it was yesterday or maybe it was Tuesday. But with his overall recruitment, Nebraska surged when they offered. They surged when he came in for a visit, and then they kind of fell off. He visited Oregon. He visited A&M along with Nebraska. And Nebraska was a very distant third for Camren. Now, if they could have got him on campus this weekend, things could have maybe changed. I think Texas A&M certainly was not wanting this visit to happen because I think they know Nebraska could have made a move, certainly, in his recruitment. That's why they locked him up yesterday or the day prior before he visits Nebraska. It's a big win for Texas A&M on the recruiting trail. Now, our next prospect visiting here in a couple weeks, or next weekend, I should say, on June 13th, is Dominic Turnbull. A 3-star recruit. Rivals has him as a 4-star. I really like his length, 6'2", 175 pounds. And look at this, 23 pass breakups as a junior. Talk about ball skills. This kid has it. Over 25 FBS offers. I think he's a little bit undervalued on 3 and on 247. I think Rivals actually is right with his recruiting ranking. He is a 4-star recruit. I believe Dominic is going to be a composite 4-star by the time everything is said and done. Now, his recruitment has been very evident, I think, where he is going to end up. And I think that's Nebraska. Florida, USC, Michigan, North Carolina, Arizona State, etc. They've all offered him over the past year or so. But only Nebraska and Florida have ever got him on campus. And as things sit right now, Nebraska is the only school he's got an official visit lined up with. And that's next weekend, like I said, on June 13th. That is a clear indication where his recruitment stands. He's only got one official visit lined up. It's us. I think a commitment from Dominic Turnbull to Nebraska will happen shortly after his visit to Nebraska next week. Hell, it might be before that visit. The next recruit we're going to talk about is a consensus 4-star. I believe consensus. Yeah, everything but ESPN. So, well, you don't care about them anyways. Consensus 4-star recruit, Danny Odem, has over 50 FBS offers. Really good length again, 6'2", 180 pounds. Look at his junior stats: 45 tackles, 3 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. And guess what? That was across only 10 games. As a sophomore, he had 33 tackles, 5 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, and 2 forced fumbles. Talk about ball skills: interceptions, forced fumbles, pass breakups. Granted, it's not the 20 plus that Dominic Turnbull had, but this kid is an absolute ball hawk. Now, Clemson, Auburn, Oklahoma, Penn State, Ohio State are all in the mix. Ohio State just offered Danny Odem as well, and they're surging in his recruitment. Now, Nebraska's in a good spot. I still believe this. Even with the OSU offer, I think Nebraska is in a good spot with Danny Odem. They've been on him for a long time. They've had him on campus multiple times. However, as we know, that Ohio State offer certainly changes things. He visited Clemson last weekend. He's at Oklahoma this weekend. Then he's going to Auburn. Then he's going to Ohio State. And then Nebraska gets the final visit. Now, does that visit happen? I'm not sure. We're going to get to that here in just a second. But you're not going to see this just with Danny. You're going to see this with all Nebraska recruits and recruits just in general, even guys that Nebraska isn't going after. There is such a huge push now for recruits to commit on the weekend or shortly thereafter of a visit to a school. Schools are paying for commitments on a monthly basis. That is huge. Nebraska, I don't think, is going to do that. But On3's Pete Nakos flat out said it. There's anonymous coaches and donors or whatever that are telling him that they're paying upwards of $25,000 for a commitment. This is absolutely insane. So does he visit Nebraska on June 20th? Does he make it to Lincoln? Because we know some of the schools he's visiting are very likely those schools that are paying for commitments. I think he does. I think Nebraska's connections, their Florida connections, not only that, but their relationships that they've built with Danny, their authenticity as people are going to get Nebraska the visit on June 20th from Danny Odem. They've been on him longer. They've been recruiting him harder. They've been more consistent in their recruitment with Danny than the other schools. Ohio State just came into the picture, but again, it's Ohio State. It's the reigning national champs. It's a team that's been one of the best, most consistent programs at winning over the last 25 years, if not longer. They're one of the best programs of all time. They all have proven success. That's the caveat here with who Nebraska is going against. They all have proven success. Nebraska doesn't. So when it comes to pushing for a commitment, do you want to go play for a proven winner and secure your spot? Or do you want to wait, maybe lose your spot, visit Nebraska on the 20th, a team that's clawing back to relevancy? This Recruitment is going to be very complicated, I think, for Danny Odem because he's got Ohio State that's going to push strongly for commitment. Clemson. I'm not as worried about Auburn. I'm not even as worried about Oklahoma, personally. I think this is going to come down to Nebraska, Clemson, and Ohio State. Can Nebraska hold on and get a potential commitment from a lockdown, man-to-man corner in Danny Odem? Only time will tell. Our final guy, a local product, brothers on the team, 3-star Darion Jones, 6'1", 180 pounds. Older brother is Donovan Jones, current corner for Nebraska. Really good junior season, 47 tackles, 1 sack, 5 pass breakups, and 8 interceptions to go along with one of those being a pick 6. You're looking at Iowa State, Minnesota, Kansas State, Iowa, and Nebraska. That's his top group right here. He visited Minnesota last weekend. He visited K-State the weekend prior. I believe he's going to be at Iowa State and then Nebraska and then wraps everything up with Iowa. And I think if you look at the visits backwards, that is his order. It's Iowa, Nebraska, Iowa State, Minnesota, Kansas State. I hope that makes sense. This is going to be a Nebraska-Iowa battle. He's announcing his commitment on July 4th. We're not that far away. It's June 5th. We are a month away from a commitment from Darion Jones. I think staying closer to home, playing with his older brother, family can be at every game, can eventually win out here. It may not win out on July 4th, though. I want to preface that right now. Nebraska has to overcome being late to the party, late to offer him. Their original plan was to wait until he performed at a summer camp, which is would be happening right now. And they got the message, like they cannot wait to offer him then. And they offered him, rightfully so, before then. But they have ground to make up. They had ground to make up. I'm glad they offered him. He's well deserving of an offer. But on July 4th, I think Darion Jones is going to commit to Iowa. Now, Nebraska can change things when he comes in for his official visit. But they've got a lot of ground to make up on Iowa right now. And last but certainly not least, Devin Jackson, consensus 4-star recruit, elite recruit, a big-time safety prospect for Nebraska. Over 40 FBS offers, really good size at 6'2", 190 to 200 pounds. He is teammates with Danny Odem. Look at his junior stats. 80 tackles, 7 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries, and a forced fumble. And that was across 10 games. As a sophomore, 58 tackles, 2 pass breakups, and a fumble recovery in 9 games. And as a freshman, he was playing on varsity, was not starting, but was playing, and had 58 tackles and 5 pass breakups as a freshman. This kid has been an absolute stud since day one. Nebraska has been recruiting him for quite a while. He decommitted, we'll backtrack a little bit here. He decommitted from Florida in April. And that was less than 2 weeks after he visited Nebraska for the second time this calendar year. Florida is certainly still in the picture with his recruitment. He's a Florida kid, as pretty much every single other recruit we've talked about today, except for Camren Hamiel, who was from Arizona, and obviously Darion Jones, who's from Omaha. Nebraska loves their Florida players. Now, Devin Jackson is being recruited also by Miami, LSU, and Oregon. LSU is kind of surging, but they're not like a top factor in his recruitment right now. He just took an official visit there last weekend. That is, in fact, that is his dream school, but I think they still have a lot of ground to make up with him. At the end of the day, I think this is going to be a battle between Nebraska and between Oregon. And Oregon didn't offer until very recently, but again, just like Ohio State, that Oregon offer carries so much weight, proven success at an elite level, very high level, proven track record of putting players into the NFL. That's why I'm surprised LSU hasn't surged faster than they have, because that's DBU. In my opinion, they are. So at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a battle between Nebraska and Oregon. Now, of course, he's taking official visits to all these other schools we're talking about. They could surge with those official visits. Devin Jackson is visiting the same weekend as his teammate Danny Odem, June 20th. And the same thing I said about Danny applies to Devin. Do they make this visit on June 20th? Does Miami or Oregon, who we know are paying for commits, push for a commit and not allow that visit to happen? We know Oregon and Miami have gone all out with NIL, paying for commitments, like I said, overpaying players, etc. Nebraska's not going to overpay. Does culture at Nebraska win out in this recruitment over the flashiness of Oregon's uniforms and their NIL and the flashiness of Miami? It certainly can. There's just a lot of time between now and when this commitment happens. And then once that commitment happens, let's say he does go to Oregon, when he signs. You saw it with Nebraska last year. Cortez Mills committed to Oklahoma early. Nebraska kept after him. He eventually flipped. You saw it with Dawson Merritt. Committed to Bama. Nebraska kept after him, and he flipped. My voice is cracking a lot today. Sorry, I've been losing my voice steadily for the last 3 days. So I apologize for the voice cracks. I'm not going through puberty. I'm 32 years old. But back to Devin Jackson for a moment here, and then we'll wrap things up. Visited Nebraska for the Elite Junior Day in February, visited again in April, subsequently decommitted from Florida. I think those two things go hand in hand. His decommitment from Florida has to do with the surge and rise of Nebraska involved with his recruitment and his feelings towards Nebraska. I like where we sit right now, but it's going to be a battle until the end. Tomorrow, we're going to break down all of the visitors coming in because recruiting season is in full swing. Nebraska's got 9 confirmed official visitors coming tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow, because it's Thursday. So coming tomorrow to start their official visits with Nebraska. And you're going to see Nebraska do what other teams have done as well. You're going to see them push for commitments from some of these players that are coming in tomorrow. Well, we're going to discuss that tomorrow afternoon. Tonight, join us for the Husker Gutter call-in show at 7 p.m. Central Time. New time, 7 p.m. Central Time. We'll see y'all there.